you used to drink beer. I remember that. But the actions that you did to me and my sister were not due because you were drunk or you were drinking. We would be fishing and you would rape us in the middle of a field while you were fishing. We would be at gas stations and you would rape us in the van while my mother was in there going to the bathroom. You would do disgusting stuff while you were sober. So I do not accept the fact that you're saying that you were drunk and you were drinking and you don't remember, because those are things that I never forget, that my sister never forgets.
We are about to watch the parole hearing of a monster who did that to his biological daughter and many others, starting at the age of 4. He is now up for parole, seeing if he can get released 18 years early. I'll unpack it with the details of his appeal at the end.
Just tell them you're there. It's already on, ready to go. Sit down, tell them who you are.
I'm Billington.
Thank you, Mr. Billington. We will get started in 1 minute. Here. All set. Thank you so much. Okay, good morning. My name is Parole Officer McCarty. Today is Monday, July 22nd, 2024. This is the hearing of the Connecticut Board of Pardons and Paroles. The following board members are present this morning and, by stating their names on the record, certify they have reviewed all statutorily required documents and available pertinent information in preparation for this hearing.
Good morning, sir. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Jennifer Zaccanini.
Good morning. I'm panel member Page.
Good morning, I'm panel member Rodriguez.
Good
Also
morning.
present. I'm sorry. Also present this morning is Ms. DeSuze of the Office of Victim Services, and she is joining by telephone. Please state your name and inmate number for the record.
William Billington, 235127.
Thank you. This hearing is being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Mr. William Billington, inmate number 235127. He's serving a sentence of 40 years for sexual assault in the first degree and a violation of probation with an underlying risk of injury to a child. As of today, records reflect a parole eligibility date of May 29th, 2022, as this is a rehear. There is victim input in this case. There is also an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows the offender has completed the sex treatment program since his last hearing. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score on the RT falls within the low range of risk for recidivism. Utilizing the static 99R, the offender's overall score for sexual offense recidivism falls within the low range. Mr. Billington, this is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin.
I had to write stuff down because I can't remember stuff too easily. I know what I did was wrong. I'm fully to blame. I never should have done it, and I'm sorry for that. I not only hurt my daughter and stepdaughter, but I also caused hurt for everyone else around me. Even though they have forgiven me, it will always be with me for the rest of my life. I've never gotten a ticket in here. I've obeyed all the rules. I have no problem with authority, and you won't have any problem with me at all. I'm 74 now, and I'm no longer that person I was. I can still be a good dad and a grandpa if given the chance. What I've learned from that program I had to do was what causes, like what they said was like triggers. My trigger was drinking. That was my main thing. It was always the cause of everything I did. And I know for a fact I'm never ever going to drink again. The reason I'm saying that is because in here, I could have had drinks any day of the week, anytime at all that I wanted. There's so much of it in here, it's unbelievable. And I've never ever taken a sip. I also learned that a person can relapse and how to prevent that relapse. And that's by having people to talk to. I have some people on the outside that I'll be able to talk to. my boss, I still got a couple cousins left. Most of my family is gone now, so. And I learned how to recognize the trigger and how to avoid it. I did voices also. I learned there that no one has the right to hurt another person. That I cause physical and emotional sufferings to them. I know that. But you won't have to worry about me because I don't ever want to come back here again. I'm never going to do anything that's going to cause me to come back here.
Okay, is your statement done, sir?
Huh?
Are you done with your statement?
Yeah.
Thank you. We have questions for you. When we're done with our questions, we'll turn the hearing over to the Office of Victim Services for input. Then we'll deliberate and give you our decision.
All right.
We'll begin with my colleague, Ms. Page.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Billington, I was on your prior panel, and we recommended that you complete the sex offender treatment program and also refrain from incurring any disciplinary infractions. And so I appreciate your
Compliance?
Yes. I appreciate your compliance, and you're doing what we asked you to do. One of the things in your opening statement, though, that really is an issue for me is that you said that alcohol was the only reason that you committed these offenses. And
Basically because there was so many times at the end of the night, I don't remember even going home sometimes. I mean, I've woken up not knowing how I got there.
but so did you ever, so you haven't taken a tier program since you've been there?
Huh?
A tier program, a substance abuse program?
No.
Because what alcohol does is it lowers your inhibitions. So the thoughts that you've had about these fantasies with these minor children, they've already existed. And so the alcohol just enhances those thoughts and gives you the courage to follow through. So alcohol may have assisted, but it wasn't the only reason you committed these offenses. Yeah. So you talked about alcohol being a trigger. I've read that that was one of your external factors. What about your internal? Are you able to identify any of your internal risk factors?
I know I answered all the questions at the program, but right now I can't remember what that was.
So here's a simple one. What would you say to your daughter by way of an apology? I know I heard you say that you're remorseful for your actions and you know that you caused them physical and emotional pain that will last forever, right?
Yeah.
What would you say to her if she asked you, why did you do this to me?
That's a very good question.
Thank you.
I'd have to really think about that for a minute.
Yeah. Because, you know, you started off with her friends, you know, and then things kind of escalated to her. And in one of the reports that I read, that you said that you committed these crimes to avenge your ex-wife for her mistreatment of you.
Yeah.
Do you think that your daughter and stepdaughter deserved what you did to them?
I would tell them it wasn't their fault.
So what would you say to her? Yeah,
I know.
you really, you should take some time to think about that, sir, because at some point, I mean, you'll be able to address it, honestly, a little deeper when you finish your treatment out in the community, should you be granted parole. Do you understand that you're required to be on the sex offender registry for the rest of your life?
Yes,
And do you know exactly what that is?
yes, I can't go near schools and all kinds of stuff like that.
It's not just the restriction, sir. That means
Or
that you
kids.
have to
Or-
register with the state wherever
Yeah.
you move. I think it's every 3 months. They ask for an updated address
Yes,
So
I know that, yes.
for the rest of your life. Okay. And so when you're released, you're asking for a halfway house?
Yes, please. I had people, I had sponsors, but everybody's moving now. I don't have nobody.
Yeah. So tell me, what happens on a stressful day when you're out in the community and everyone knows that Mr. Billington is a sex offender who, inappropriately touched children, and everyone's, I guess they're pointing at you, or they're saying, "Oh, there he is, there he is." How do you think you'll handle that out in the community?
I can't confront them people. I'm not allowed, I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to confront anybody like that. In the program thing, what they said was like being stressed out or stuff like that. To have something that I can fall back on, to go to, is gonna take my mind off of that. And the main thing that would take my mind off of that is my guitar. And people to talk to. Like always, like having a book of numbers, phone numbers that I could call somebody. And another thing I would have to do this myself would be to keep a journal. Everywhere I go, everybody I talk to. Anything that happens, I have to write, I would have to write it down.
Right. And so Mr. Billington, how long have you been down now?
What?
How long have you been incarcerated?
Since '99,
How many years is that?
over 25.
What do you think the most difficult thing will be for you when you return out into the community?
All the electronics. I'm still trying to figure out this tablet. I'm totally lost with that.
Well, it definitely will be you definitely have to adjust because everything is electronic now. So
Yeah, my one sponsor that was telling me that, because I talk with him all the time through mail, writing back and forth, and he keeps telling me, Bill, you're gonna have to learn a lot of stuff when you get out because everything's changed. He told me everything's changed. He just recently he told me that.
yeah, it has. So, and I mean, are you going to work? You're 74, so.
I'm still able to work. I've been a chairman all this time.
Okay. And so when you're not, what are the hours that you're the chairman?
In the afternoon.
How many hours?
Oh, it's only a couple, 2 or 3.
So what do you do for the rest of the day?
I do Bible study classes. Through the mail. I am constantly writing for courses to do.
Okay.
See, it's not just Bible classes. Like, I don't know if have you ever heard of Criminon?
Yes.
I did every course they had. And one of the courses that they had that I completed was alcoholic. That was one of them. And there was another one about family. There was 6 full courses that they had. And I completed every single one.
Okay. Well, I have to tell you, Mr. Billington, the odds are absolutely against you. It's going to be very difficult to transition from the facility out to the community, especially given the length of time that you've been down.
I know.
Happy to see that you completed the programs, and I really do hope that you have gained some insight as to why you committed the crimes and how you can avoid them in the future, because you have a long road ahead of you. You're not done with the sentence until 2040.
I know, I understand that.
Yeah, that's a long way away. And so many innocent children injured because of your actions. So I do appreciate your complying with our recommendations, and I do wish you the best of luck, and I appreciate your speaking with me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Hey, Mr. Billington, so I reviewed your last parole hearing where your victims essentially forgave you and
Right.
did not oppose your being released. I thought that was very gracious, very generous of them, given the damage that you caused. I do want to ask you, in your opening statement, you expressed remorse for hurting your daughter and stepdaughter. Up until now, it's my understanding that you denied
Yes, I
sexually
did.
assaulting your. I'm
Yes, I
sorry.
did. Yes, I did. I just couldn't bring myself to admit it.
So is today the first time that you're accepting responsibility for your second victim?
Yes, I did that through the group thing. That's how I got to it.
Okay, so participating in the sex offender treatment program helped you to accept responsibility and finally acknowledge
Yes, ma'am.
that you have two victims in your instant offense.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think while it would have been better for your victim to hear this much sooner than 25 years after you're incarcerated, I do think that's a big step for you, accepting that responsibility. And I think victims need to hear that. It's a very important part of their process. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Well, you took the Voices program prior to your last hearing, so you should have understood that before then. But we're there now. So you acknowledge that you've had multiple victims, but in your instant offenses, you had two victims. You also minimized at your last hearing the sexual assaults of your first victim. You said half of what was said was true. Do you still maintain that?
Some of that is lies, though. Some of it was lies. That's why I called it. I can't. My mom taught me if there's a lie, you don't give in to that.
Well, what your mom taught you didn't work because you were lying for many years.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there any possible chance that you were so intoxicated that you didn't recall some of it? You said yourself sometimes you didn't remember things.
It's possible. It's very possible. Like I said, there was times it could have happened. I don't know.
Then why call your victim a liar?
Huh?
Then why call your victim a liar if it's possible that it could have happened?
Because I just couldn't remember.
Well, then you say, I don't remember. You don't say it's all lies.
But that was the first thing that came to my head.
Okay. Poor choice of words.
I know.
We'll chalk it up to a poor choice of words.
Yeah.
Okay. You're 74 years old. We don't like to see people die in prison. That is not our goal here, right? You have to keep working on yourself. This will be a process for the rest of your life. Like you said, you're in pretty good shape for your age. You're still able to work. You want to go out there and work, which also means you're still able to sexually assault people.
I understand.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have to be very vigilant with your treatment, with the words you use, everything you do. Okay?
Yes, I know.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Billington, I don't really have a lot of questions because a lot has been shared with you already, advice and questions about you minimizing some of the situation. So I don't need to go into any of that. But I do have a concern about your situation with alcohol. Granted, you didn't do any pruno inside, the stressors, there are stressors, but there's gonna be additional stressors on the outside, as my colleague, panel member Page shared with you. And I am a little concerned that you haven't set anything up for yourself to have some support on the outside. You shared early on that you really had no one on the outside.
Right now, I
Maybe
don't
maybe
have,
a couple of people, from what I read, a couple of individuals that you do have.
yeah, that's all I
Yeah,
have at the moment.
Yeah,
See,
and I'm a little concerned about that. And there are some services in there that you could have utilized to kind of begin to set something up around your situation with alcohol. And that does concern me. And I would say whatever happens today, that you should consider connecting with a recovery program or something like that, so you have an additional support around your issues with alcohol, especially with the situation that you got wrapped up in.
I know,
Right.
but I know if I were thinking about taking a drink or something like that, I would have to go to an AA meeting right off the bat. I'd have to.
And I'm suggesting that you think about that in advance of, and before you get to that point. I'm suggesting you think about that before you do that, before you get to that point. Okay?
Uh,
That's all I really have for you. But I appreciate you talking to me this morning. Thank you. And good luck to you.
okay.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll turn the hearing over to the Office of Victim Services. Ms. DeJesus, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, board members. I do have one of the victims on the phone. This is your opportunity to express to the board your wishes and your concerns. I am to remind you, excuse me, that you are to address the panel members only, and you may begin.
Hi, my name is Cassie. I'm the stepdaughter of Mr. Billington. I didn't write anything. I'm just kind of speaking from the heart right now. My sister was going to be a part of this, but she had a doctor's appointment this morning, so she asked me to speak for her again. During his opening statement there, he had mentioned he could still be a good father and grandfather, and I'll be damned if you're ever around my children or any of our children. That would never happen. That would make me and my sister the most horrible parent that ever walked the face of the earth. Just to let you know that that's never going to happen if you do get out. If you do get out, you will never see me and Billy Joe. You will never see any of our children. We have 5 children apiece. I have grandchildren, and you will never, ever be a part of any of their lives, just to make that very clear. As far as your other children, I feel confident in saying that that's not going to happen with them either. At the last hearing, I did forgive you. My sister did forgive you. You denied a lot of stuff. You denied everything, actually. You said that Billy Joe was too young, too little, that you never did anything to her, that you completely denied doing anything to me, and those traumas still live in my head. I mean, I am very protective of my kids and my grandson because of all the stuff that you did to me. And you were not an alcoholic. You used to drink beer. I remember that. But the actions that you did to me and my sister were not due because you were drunk or you were drinking. We would be fishing and you would rape us in the middle of a field while you were fishing. We would be at gas stations and you would rape us in the van while my mother was in there going to the bathroom. You would do disgusting stuff while you were sober. So I do not accept the fact that you're saying that you were drunk and you were drinking and you don't remember, because those are things that I never forget, that my sister never forgets, because those are things that we were completely sober for. But you were not an alcoholic. You would have a few beers, but I can never recall you being a sloppy drunk in any way, shape, or form. You used to go to work every day at New Cheese. We would go with you to work. You were never drunk. I could never even recall you drinking hard alcohol, just a few cans of beer, Bush beer, I think it was. But so I don't accept that. And after our last hearing, my sister and I, although we do forgive you for everything that you've done, if you really know Jesus and you're really doing Bible studies, then you would be able to sit here in front of the camera and in front of everybody that's in front of you and say everything that you have done to me and Billy Joe. There's no reason that after going to prison for 25 years, taking these classes, and then saying that you're getting right with Jesus and you're taking these Bible classes, that you can't look right in the camera and just tell us exactly what you did to us, to finally take responsibility for the stuff that you did to us. You weren't drunk, and I know that for a fact because I have a very good memory of everything that happened when I was a child, and so does my sister. But my sister and I, after the last hearing, we were kind of devastated that he still didn't take responsibility. So at this time, we don't recommend him getting out of prison, only because we have not been satisfied with him telling us that he is sorry, that he did these things to us, and we want him to actually sit there and tell you all what he did to us, because I think that the only way to heal is to actually 100% say, no, I didn't just rub on my youngest daughter. I actually penetrated my younger daughter. Those are things that he needs to take responsibility for, and he still hasn't. And if you do let him out, we're fine with that too. We don't care. He will never be a part of our family. He will never see our kids. Our kids don't even know who he is. We had a father. Our father was Wade Shippey, and he passed away. He was the father to us, and he was the father that we should have had as a kid, but we didn't. And he is the kid's grandfather, and that is the only grandfather all of our kids will ever know. But if you let him out, that's fine. That's all on you guys. But as far as me and my sister, before he gets out, we feel like he needs to take responsibility and to actually say in this room everything that he's done to us, so we can hear that he acknowledges it before he gets out. Because by him saying, yes, I did do this, and fully admit to everything he did and not to call us liars, then maybe when he gets out, he'll be able to actually have a better life. You know what I mean? Like, I want him to have a good life when he gets out of prison. But in order to do that, he has to take responsibility. It wasn't the alcohol, because there was not alcohol involved a lot of times. I can remember going and taking a shower or a bath, and him going into the attic to watch me take a bath. He was completely sober when he did that. There was a lot of things that I remember that you were not drunk. You were not an alcoholic. So those are things that you need to take responsibility for. Why did you molest me and my sister? Because you have a problem, and it is not alcohol. And so that's really all I have to say. But as far as my sister and I, until he can actually sit there and say what he did to us, then we feel like maybe he's not ready to get out yet. But we do forgive him. But just for his sake, we think that it's not appropriate until he can actually admit to everything he's done.
Thank you.
Thank you. All set, board members.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jesus. Mr. Billington, give us some time to discuss your case. We're going to enter deliberation, and we'll get back to you with our decision when we're done.
Okay.
Ms. Page?
So, Madam Chair, I am taken aback by what the victims just shared with us, because I know I was on his last panel and they were very, very gracious to forgive him and support his early release. However, it sounds like he talked himself out of that at his prior hearing, because it only re-victimized them again, and they had to live that all over again. I am happy to hear, though, that he did accept some responsibility here today. He was able to complete the program that he needed to be suitable for discretionary parole. He remains disciplinary infraction free, as we discussed. My concern is that Mr. Billington has done this a number of times to other children. And, the fact that the victim harped on his not being alcoholic, that he
Right.
was doing this clean and sober. And I kind of alluded to that in my line of questions to him, because, that's something that he really does need to acknowledge. But I think that I was prepared to vote in his favor because of the way that the last hearing went. However, given the input from the victim and the amount of time that he has remaining on his sentence, I think that I would support the victim, even though she said that, I guess she didn't really say that she was opposed to this early release, but, I just, given his criminal history, I would support a denial in this case.
Okay. All right. I want to thank the victim for being brave enough to come in and give us a statement here today. Unfortunately, I don't think the victims will ever get what they want, or not during this process, because we really are not in the business of trying cases. So we would never ask him to describe in detail exactly what he did all those years ago. I think there was some progress today, because he did say that he acknowledged sexually assaulting both of his victims, without going into graphic detail, of course. And I believe that did come from the sex offender treatment program that he took since his last hearing. I also reject the explanation that alcohol played a huge part in this, because we know the details of previous offenses.
Right.
And the details did not necessarily include intoxication or alcohol abuse at that level. I believe he was drinking daily, and I'm sure that didn't help the situation, of course, but exactly, there are bigger issues here. He's taken the track 1 program, voices, some Bible study correspondence classes. He is 74 years old. And more importantly, he's been incarcerated for 25 years. I'm not certain that continued incarceration would benefit anybody here. I think he's done what he can. I think he needs more specialized sex offender treatment, and I don't know that he'll receive that while he's incarcerated. So I'm not sure what the purpose of bringing him back would be. But I'd like to see him continue with the progress that he's made in treatment. So for that reason, I'd be willing to vote him to parole today, and he'd be under strict supervision with the special management unit. So any small mistakes, and he would be returned to finish his lengthy sentence. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought the victim's statement was also very powerful today, and very different from what I had read from the previous hearing. And I agree. I don't think they're ever going to be able to kind of get to that point where, even if he was able to describe that happened, it doesn't take away what happened. He did follow through on the recommendations of the previous panel. Has taken the program. I'm also inclined to support his discretionary parole today, because he would have some supervision, and because he would be able to get the more extensive program on the outside that may be helpful for him. One of my big concerns, though, for him is that he really doesn't have a lot of support in the community, and he's going out into a very different world today. But I think he's done 25 years already, and I think with the strict supervision he will have, as you stated very clearly, if he messes up, he's going to be back in prison again, probably finishes. So, or maybe not even be able to finish it at his age, at 74. So I would also be inclined to support discretion today.
All right, conditions. I have a halfway house, no alcohol. There's 2 victims, a co-defendant, no minors, and treatment in the community.
Correct.
Anything further? No. All right. In the matter of William Billington, inmate number 235127, I'll move to grant parole effective, well, and it's not going to happen today, but July 22nd, 2024, with the following additional conditions. You're to have no contact with your victims, initials BB and CKH. No contact with your co-defendant, William BJ Roberts. You'll participate in sex offender treatment in the community. You're not to have any contact with minors while you're in the community. No alcohol consumption, and you'll parole to a halfway house. Is there anything further? Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This is a majority decision with panel member Page dissenting. Do you have questions, sir?
No,
So it'll take some time. They have to find a placement for you, but someone will reach out to you and you'll sign off on these conditions, and then you'll be supervised by the special management unit so you can resume your treatment on the outside. Keep working on yourself, sir.
all right, thank you.
Right. Thank you all for your participation.
Is that it?
You're all set.
Thank you.
Nobody gonna steal your watch, I'm watching, we don't been here. Anita. Okay.
How someone grants this cockroach, this monster, this deviant is insane to me. The Connecticut Parole Board, I know I flip-flop around, but I think I've completely given up. There is no consistency with the Parole Board members. I think that we have a tough board. I think that I figured out Zaccanini. I think I figured out Page as being the weaker one. But no, they jump back and forth. There's no sense to it. Everything they said, it actually makes no sense. From, we're not here to we don't want to have you die in prison. That's what she says. It makes more sense to have you out so you can get the specialized sex treatment that you need, that you can't get while you're incarcerated. What's the point of bringing you back in? I'm quoting what she said. I wrote down what she said, and that makes no sense. So you think he needs more treatment. You're admitting to that. So you're going to send him out of prison where he is now a risk because there are children outside of prison so that he can get treatment so he'll be less of a risk? No. It is okay for him to die in prison. There's a reason the judge gave him this sentence. There's a reason it took the jury just 3 hours to find him guilty. There are people you need to lock up for life. There are people who need to die in prison. It's crazy to me that we heard the parole board officer actually say that, because it just gives you insight into how broken they are. Your reason for paroling him is because he can get the treatment he needs outside of prison? How do you even unpack how that is so wrong with everything? There's so much wrong with that. I mean, the most simple thing you can say without even is, well, why don't they have better programs in prison? Isn't the point to release someone after they've had the best kind of programs they can take? Not that it makes a difference. Not that you can give him as many programs as he wants. It won't make a difference. There's one thing she said at the beginning. It's not the alcohol that made you do it. Alcohol lowered your inhibitions. You always wanted to do it. Remember, we're talking about his biological daughter who was 4 years old. He did it for 7 years. Plus his stepson, plus he had other victims. Plus, you want to know something? Let's add more insanity to this. They said, well, the risk of if he gets out and he does something again, he's going to get locked right back up. He's going to have that hanging over his head. He was on probation for a sex crime when he committed this crime. Yes. We don't have details of that crime, but I'm sure it's no surprise that he was on probation. But yes, he was on probation for another sex offense when he committed this one, when he was finally caught for this one. How is that not brought up? He shows up. This is not his first parole hearing. He shows up And he knows just enough to say that he admits to doing it. But then he doesn't even check the boxes on anything else. He completely fails his parole hearing. Now, he could have aced it. It wouldn't have made a difference to me, and I think most of us. But he completely failed it. I don't want to come back here again. I'll never do anything that causes me to come back here again. Can you answer your risk factors? That's what they ask him. No, I can't. I can't remember. What would you say if they said, "Why did he do this to me?" Well, that's a good question. I'll have to think about. What would you say to her? No answer. I mean, 25 years in prison and he hasn't thought about any of these questions. He's taken programs to learn the answers to these questions, and he starts the first. I don't know if you said it, but when he said in his opening speech, "I still want to be a good dad and grandpa," I was like, "Shut up!" And really, my heart sunk when I heard that. I'm like, "Oh my God!" And thank God the survivor comes up and she gives the most epic mic drop. And you will never be a grandpa to them. If we allowed that, it would make us the worst mothers in the world in so many words. And it was like, yes, say it, preach. That was the half sister. Talking on behalf of her sister and the other victims. Standing up, laying down the law, saying it how it is. And the parole board should have listened to her. The parole board should have denied this roach. You know, everything they said, even in the tone of voice, when she said, "Make him say what he did," and then was it Zaccanini who comes back, who I've seen her do so well in so many other hearings, but she says, "We're not a court. We're not in the business of trying cases. We're not going to make him share all the details." And I just don't. You're not a court. You're not in the business of trying cases, but that doesn't mean we have seen parole boards do this in other states. We've seen them do it in Connecticut. You say, "Tell us what you did. What are you taking accountability for?" And the way that she said it, Zaccanini said it like so offhandedly, so with no compassion. And it's weird because her background, she has spent her life protecting children from parents like this. Has been her life. This is what she was before she was a parole board member, and she has seen it all. And I don't know if she's become numb to it or what, but how can it be? Who benefits by letting him out? No one. There is only risk. The risk to a child. Someone who does this to their own biological child, someone who does this from the age of 4 to 11 that he's caught for. So he's a multi-offender, and we'll go over the appeal. He did a lot. He invited his friends over to partake. He was trying to get her friends from school. I mean, it's just endless. You can't put a serial killer back out on the streets, although we've seen that. We've seen people try to do that in Louisiana. You can't put a sexual deviant repeat offender back on the streets. It makes no sense. And the most simple thing, again, you say is that the judge, I'll read from this. Thank you, Richard, of course, for the info. This is from, I have to read it because it's from, it's not in like a format that's shareable. And then we'll go over the appeal, which is shareable. And I'll put the links in the description. But this was the newspaper article of his sentencing, which took place like in 2000 or something. The latest victim of the convicted child molester, William Billington, wrote in a letter read in Superior Court, "I hope you rot in jail." She got her wish Thursday. Billington, who was 50 at the time of Southington, was sentenced to 40 years in prison. That sentence will begin after he finishes, watch this, that 40 years won't begin until he finishes his 8-year term that he's serving for contacting a victim of an earlier sexual assault probation violation. So he got probation, and now he had to serve 8 years of that. And just look at this facts in the history that the parole board won't see this and bring this up in this parole hearing is a dereliction of duty, in my opinion. He clearly doesn't care about probation or parole. He clearly is willing to take risks. He had worked at a restaurant, showed no reaction to the judge, Judge M. Byron, I'll call him Judge, imposed a sentence that will likely keep him behind bars for the rest of his life. The sentence was structured in a way that would keep him from being eligible for parole until 2046, when he would be 96 years old. So there it is. The judge made a sentence that was going to keep him in prison for life. Now, why he has parole eligibility now, I don't know. I asked Richard. If I don't get the info back before I'm done unpacking, I'll put it in the description because, again, I don't understand how that's possible. This crime is a real tragedy for the victim, the judge said. Billington was convicted on October 13th and charged in first-degree and second-degree sexual assault and risk of injury to a minor in connection with the crimes that occurred. A jury took 3 hours to decide he was guilty of doing that to the victims. During the trial, the state's witness said that he assaulted the child numerous times over several years. The abuse began when she was 4 years old. One time, authorities said Billington invited a co-worker to have sex with the child. And that was the co-defendant, who they said you have no contact with. Prosecutor Brian Perleski read the victim's letter in court. The young woman, who was 18 at the time of this, wrote that she no longer blames herself for what happened about the abuse. Almost killed me emotionally. Do you know how many times I had been hospitalized because of what he did to me? I just wanted to die. A pre-sentencing report prepared by adult probation concluded that Billington had no remorse and was a sexual predator very likely to offend again. On that note, a low risk score. A low risk score. Make it make sense. Just realized I had the wrong glasses on. I should get rid of these. A low risk score. Why? Because he took some programs? I know that we don't have PhDs. I know that we're, not from an Ivy League school. I know that we're just sheeple and we can't possibly wrap our mind around the complexities of the algorithm. But really, a low risk score? Okay. We're just, I'm just a Mandoo. But hey, here adult probation said that he's that he has no remorse and he's a sexual predator likely to offend again. Yet apparently 25 years in prison and 2 programs, which he can't even remember a word or two that he learned from it, has completely changed him. It's completely changed his sexual wiring, his brain. He no longer fiends for little ones. To protect society, probation officials said he deserves the maximum of 70 years. So this was only the second time in my career that I've seen probation recommend the maximum, said the judge. Mr. Billington apparently has no insight at all into what he has done by an exploit of child for his own gratification. Among those in court seeing the sentencing were the victim's mother, her stepfather, a Southington police officer who investigated the case, and several victim advocates from the prosecution's office. And so now we know that the maximum allowed to sentence was 70. The judge, in his brilliant wisdom, only sentenced to 40. They claimed, now he's 74. He was 50 years old at the time, so 40 years again would have made him 90 years old, and that is a life sentence. But why the judge now, as we can see, that these laws are messed up. Like, unless I hear something from Richard that there was an appeal or something that I missed, he actually is eligible for parole, and now is getting paroled. So the whole thing is a gimmick. We know that. And why the judge didn't give the maximum of 70 years is also an insult, because why not? Why not give it? If you're sending him away for life, then why not give it? Unless you know that you're giving him a chance of parole and you're just a two-faced liar. So I don't know. It might be a mix of both. Who knows? Now we'll go to the appeal. God, this stuff takes the wind out of me. When I saw on the spreadsheet that there was a grant for this, I actually thought it was a typo. I actually did. I thought that maybe Richard put the grant in the wrong column, because I was like, there is no way they are granting Miss Roach. So this is his post-conviction relief. He actually ended up winning something in this appeal, but again, it's not clear to me that it changed the outcome, but maybe it did. So basically, he said that he claimed ineffective assistance of counsel in his 2000 jury trial. October 2000, he was convicted. 2 counts of sexual assault first, and 1 count of second. 2 counts of risk of injury to a minor. On December 12, 2000, the trial court imposed a 40-year sentence consecutive to an 8-year sentence violation of his probation charge, which would have given him 48 years, which would have been 98 until he could get parole. Now, the matter was appealed in 2003, which reversed his conviction of sexual assault second. So all it did was reverse 1 count of the second. So I don't believe this could have affected anything. And how that, whatever. The defendant is the victim's father. From the time she was born in 1982 until 1993, the victim lived with the defendant, her mother, and her half-sister in the town of B. In 1993, when her parents separated, the victim resided with the defendant in the town of S until she was removed from his care in late 1994 or early 1995. Prior to the separation, of the victim's half-sister saw the defendant perform this on the victim and witnessed the victim to perform fellatio on the defendant. I think this is just, I looked it up. It's like another word for fellatio. Those acts occurred 2 or 3 times a week. 2 or 3 times a week. 2 or 3 times a week. When the victim's mother was not home. And again, I don't know why they always just sentence for like 1 count of this and 1 count of that. Why don't they sentence for 20 counts? Why don't they? And they say, well, I don't know, the jury and the da-da-da. It's just easier to do 1 count. But I mean, the victim was not a willing participant, no kidding. And the defendant gave her money, candy, or cigarettes so that she would not tell anyone. And you would think they can get him for another, X number of years for giving a child cigarettes. They just want to throw that in there. Subsequently, the defendant divorced from his wife. A male acquaintance of the defendant visited him and the victim in their home in the town of S. He participated in a game invented by the defendant called, this is with the man he invited to participate. Subsequent to the defendant's divorce from his wife, a male acquaintance of the defendant visited him and the victim in their home in the town of S. He participated in a game invented by the defendant called Naked Hide and Seek. The defendant game was played by turning out the lights and hiding. The person who was found had to remove an article of clothing. The game ended when everyone was naked. The defendant encouraged his acquaintance, his friend, to touch the victim, his daughter, sexually. According to the acquaintance, he subsequently was convicted of sexual assault in the first degree for acts he perpetrated on the victim when he was with the defendant and the victim. During the time the victim was living with the defendant in the town of S, the victim's school friends visited their home. I am curious how much time he got. Every day, visited their home every day. In 1994, one of the school friends observed the defendant make frequent gestures and comments to the victim. She saw the defendant's gestures with his tongue as if performing oral and saw him touch the victim's buttocks. Remember, his daughter. She was present with the defendant, dared the victim to remove her shirt in front of him, which the victim did. On one occasion, the defendant pretended to go in the shower, but instead jumped out naked in front of the school friend. The victim and another girl, sometime in late 94, the victim's school friend, I think at this time she would have been 11 years old. The victim's school friend told her mother and then the police. And this is what got him in trouble. I mean, he was so callous. He was so that he's now doing this in front of her friends. What she had observed. The police conducted an investigation as a result of the school friend's report. Shortly after the school friend made her report, the victim was removed from the defendant's care by the agents of the Department of Children and Families, who instituted a neglect proceeding against the defendant. In May 1998, agents of the Department of Children and Families referred the victim to the Children's Home, Residential Treatment Center for Children who have encountered severe emotional abuse or needed therapy. The victim was placed in the home as a result of her self-injurious behavior. During the course of her treatment at the home, the victim revealed to her therapist the defendant had sexually abused her. In April of 1999, Michael Shanley, a police detective, interviewed the defendant about the victim's allegations of abuse. In response to a question as to whether he had relations with his daughter, the defendant responded, "I don't remember." That's what the defendant responds, "I don't remember." The defendant was arrested soon thereafter and charged with the crimes that he'd been convicted. And this is a very detailed appeal, which I'll put in the link in the description. I mean, it's, I don't know, like many pages. And it goes through the cross-examination. And you know, of course, the victims took the stand. And look at this. Her friend took the stand. Kate was a friend of the alleged victim in 94 to 95 when she lived with her father and was 12 years old. She was called as a witness by the state. Prior to her testifying, defense counsel filed a motion apparently seeking to bar the state from eliciting testimony regarding the defendant's conduct with her. This was clearly an appropriate motion since it sought to exclude inappropriate other crimes evidence of the highly prejudicial nature, and the state was not making a claim. In conforming to the agreement, the prosecutor asked, "Did you ever observe any conduct that struck you as unusual between a daughter and a father?" She answered, "I noticed there was nudity." She was not asked how often she observed this or under what circumstances. It was left for the jury to speculate on. On cross-examination, defense counsel asked, "Now you said there was nudity on the part of Mr. Billington." Brooks answered affirmatively. And defense counsel pressed by saying, "Tell me what happened." She said, "He had gone to the bathroom and pretended to get ready to go into the shower, and he jumped out on me, the victim, and Jamie, naked." In his briefing, the petitioner argues his lawyer betrayed his duty of loyalty towards him. He represents the motion in the Lamine filed. Defense counsel barred any testimony by Brooks about her going into the bathroom with petitioner naked or petitioner had called her into the shower. Thus, it argued has violated his duty of loyalty to the client, his trial attorney effectively abandoning him during the examination. So basically, he's saying his attorney messed up. His attorney shouldn't have asked her that question. I don't know. I don't know what it really, if it makes a difference. Anyways, he ended up winning one of the appeals, but still shouldn't have made a difference. And here you have it. He is being released, paroled into society. Yeah, he might be in a halfway house. He might be, but you just have to remember he has one desire, one lust, one thing that keeps him going. And if you really think that it's not going to be just a matter of time until he finds a way to gain access, until he finds a way to achieve his goal, and for him, it could be worth it to go back to prison. So when you say, as a parole board member, what would be the purpose of keeping him in here? The answer is so simple: to protect our children. And with that, I'll let you go.